and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the DC Public Schools Fiscal Year 2025 Public Engagement hearing for school year 2024 to 2025. We are very excited to be with you this evening. This is the first of what will be many engagements around the budget. And this is sort of our official kickoff, if you will, to the fiscal year engagement. My name is Sarah Parker, and I lead engagement and partnerships for DC Public Schools. So very happy to be with you this evening. I am also joined by our Chancellor, Dr. Louis Farabee, as well as Patrick Ashley, who is our Chief of Fiscal Strategy for DC Public Schools. So you'll be hearing from Chancellor Farabee in a minute. Again, this hearing is sort of our kickoff to the fiscal year, and we're really excited to be able to hear from more than 60 stakeholders tonight, which make up our families, in some cases, maybe our students, our community members. And so this is a very important part of our process to ensure that we are listening and hearing from you. I'll review the agenda on the next slide and then pass it along to Chancellor Farabee. As I mentioned, tonight is really an opportunity to hear from our stakeholders. So that will be the bulk of the evening. Before we get started, Chancellor Farabee and myself will run through a few slides to give you an overview of both the process as well as what we're thinking about as we approach fiscal year 2025. We'll have a few closing remarks and next steps. I also want to make a note that we do have Spanish interpretation, and you'll see the link below, and we are live streaming this as well on the link below. So please join us as well, and you can listen to the recording later if you missed any testimony. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chancellor Farabee.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction and setting the parameters for this evening. I'm Dr. Louis D. Farabee, Chancellor of DC Public Schools, and excited to open tonight's dialogue around our budget planning process. And I also want to preview for you tonight some of our strategic priorities, but certainly want to hear from you what's important and what's top of mind as we think about best serving our school communities. One of the items that we want to just spend a few moments on is just recognizing how important your voice, your perspectives are. It truly takes a village. And we think about educating our young people well, ensuring that they're succeeding academically, but they're thriving once they graduate and leave DCPS. So thank you for being a part of this important step and prioritizing our resources. You can see on the slide here that we are anticipating having more limited resources as we go into fiscal year 25. DC Public Schools is in its final year of the Elementary Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Funds, which were federal funds provided to DCPS to assist us in the recovery from the pandemic. They're also known as ESSER dollars, if you heard that acronym and terminology before. And so because we will have significantly less funding from these relief dollars, we will have to prioritize some of the strategies that we've started most recently through these ESSER dollars and think about their investment in the district going forward, and then also think about new strategies that are important to our young people as well. So that sets the tone. I do want to highlight some of our ESSER strategies to give you a flavor for what these investments have been. And so we currently have been providing what we call high impact tutoring, which is tutoring is provided to students one-on-one, and then also in small group settings, and then a lot of our professional development for staff and resources for students for mathematics have also been a part of our ESSER dollars as well. So we go to the next slide. I'll share a little bit more on what we've heard thus far from families and what we should prioritize. And so throughout the evening, if you are in agreement or you want to give us a different perspective, I just wanted to highlight one, that we hear safety is top of mind for families, increasing security in our schools, safe passage program, continue our work to expand affordable and Some schools, no cost after school options, continue to increase the extracurricular activities available to students, increase mental health support, and then also reading and writing skill resources as well. So these, again, strategies that we've been thinking about based on what we've heard from you thus far. For example, we know that DCPS thrives in our work with supporting students academically, but also social and emotionally. We know the physical and emotional well-being of our students is really important, which is why we've invested a lot, not only in academic supports, but also mental health supports as well. So we're tracking with some of the priorities and what we've heard thus far, but just wanted to begin our conversation sharing this piece of feedback we've already received. So going to the next slide, I'm going to preview for you some of our strategic priorities as we journey into our next phase of our capital commitment, which is our 5-year strategic plan. And some of the themes are aligned to what I shared earlier, in that we see a need for increased extracurricular activities, clubs, based on the feedback we've received thus far. More families are looking for college and career readiness support. From a family and caregiver perspective, from our students, again, you see the same theme of extracurricular and enrichment opportunities, and providing student support for middle school. So here again, I can highlight one of our ESSER strategies. We have what we call the 6th grade academy in its first year this year, where we're providing more intensive support for our students transitioning from 5th grade to 6th grade. And then you can also see some of the priorities we heard from staff. Again, out of school time, after school, extracurriculars is a consistent theme across students, family, and caregivers, and also our staff as well. We'll go to the next slide. So we took a lot of this feedback. We had an opportunity to hear from many sectors of our community across all 8 wards. And from that, we were able to develop some strategic plan guiding principles around how we will do our work. And so I want to share a few things that are at the forefront of the way that we're thinking about our next phase of excellence. One is a commitment to an equity imperative, ensuring that we solve for some of the disparities that have persisted and create very specific strategy to support groups that have struggled in DCPS historically, including our Black and Latino students, our students that are multilingual learners, students receiving special education services. There are 2 commitments that we're making to our community, and that is we want our people to feel valued. And so we will continue to make investments in our educator and the types of resources and professional learning experiences they have, as this has been a strong strategy for DC Public Schools and certainly sends the message we value our people. Secondly, we know that we're not in this work alone. As I mentioned earlier, we truly recognize that it does take a village. And so we want to ensure that our work with partnering and engaging the community continues. There's several strategies here in several divisions of DCPS and extensions of DCPS to DC government and city agency, and of course, the Deputy Mayor of Education and his office. And then finally, there are 3 strategic priorities that you will hear a lot about that we are elevating for this next phase of our capital commitment. And that is, we want students to succeed academically in the classroom, be prepared for what's next when they graduate and leave. And then also we want students to feel connected to school. A strong sense of connection, we believe, allows students to succeed academically and then being prepared for what's next. And when we think about what's next, we're thinking about the transition from pre-K to kindergarten, from elementary school to middle school to high school, and then the ultimate transition from graduation to college and career. We go to the next slide. I do want to make sure that you know that the local school advisory team is a critical part of the school planning process and how schools allocate their resources to provide direct support to our families. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah again, who's going to share a little bit more about the connections that we make with our school advisory teams and the types of support that we also provide to our local school advisory teams.
Thank you, Chancellor. As the Chancellor has mentioned, one of the most important groups that we work with throughout the budget season at the school level, as well as the district level, are our local school advisory teams. You can go to the next slide. I hope many of you testifying here today have even been a part of your LSAT at your school community, or maybe you've gone to a meeting. But our LSATs are a mixed group of stakeholders that work alongside the school principal to ensure that they are listening from and talking to, again, our families and community members and staff together throughout the school year. And there's a variety of things, not just the budget, that our local school advisory team members do advise on. The budget is probably one of the most important, but we also work with LSATs and school leaders to talk about school goals and data around our students, and a lot of other important things that are happening at the school level. They meet regularly, some meet as much as monthly, and during the budget season, they meet even more frequently. They really are a liaison between, again, the community and the broader DCPS community. And we really do encourage the LSATs to attend things like this evening. Maybe they sit on the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Board. Maybe they go to other district-wide meetings where they can voice what's happening at the school level and be an advocate. Our school LSATs are supported by a team on my team called the Community Action Team, and we work alongside them to ensure that they feel supported during the budget season and throughout the year. And so if there's any questions about that, you can always email my team, and I'll give you the email later this evening. Before we get started, you can move to the next slide. I do want to just run through a few logistics, and then we will dive right into the testimony. We have mentioned that the testimony must remain at 3 minutes. I believe we do have a sort of clock in the corner, and my third grader attempted to make a 30-second sign, but it's not showing up too well. So we'll go with a kind reminder from myself if you do go over. If you are in a group or at a computer where there are multiple folks, please make sure that there's just one person speaking at a time. And please speak clearly and slowly. As you can see, we have interpretation, both ASL and I mentioned Spanish, and so that's really important. In addition, we have transcription, so it's really important that we capture everything. Next slide. Finally, if there are any technical difficulties, please feel free to message any one of the members of my team and the finance team that are on this evening. You can suggest privately. You can also email the ceo.info@k12@dc.gov. Please keep your cameras off when you are not testifying and your mic's on mute. We want to make sure that we're able to hear those who are testifying, and everyone will get a chance. So if there's any questions, again, please email or call. We are on standby to ensure that we capture everyone's voice tonight. I think those are all the reminders. With that said, we are going to start with the first panel. I'll be calling in groups of 6. And again, if you miss your panel, we'll be sure to call your name a little bit later as well. So the first panel I would like to start with, I will call the first group of 6, and then I'll call the name of the person who will be testifying. I hope to get everyone's name pronunciated correctly. Excuse me if I do not, and please feel free to correct me when you do come on. The first panel will be Elizabeth Stewart, Laura Nuremberg, Asante Nasir, Andrew Pratt, Jean Stritch, and Brianna Erickson. Up first is Elizabeth Stewart. Please remember to turn your camera on.
That it would help if I do the right camera. Thanks so much. I was not expecting to be first, but I thank you so much for doing this hearing. And I am an LSAT chair, so for that previous conversation. So I'm Elizabeth Liz Stewart. I'm an elected parent member and chair of the Alice Deal Middle School LSAT. And I want to highlight a few points on behalf of Deal, but then also of all DCPS schools. So DEAL serves almost 1,400 6th to 8th grade students. This is about 15% of all DCPS students in those grades. The next largest school serving those grades has about 500 students in them. So DEAL is about 3 times the size of the next largest middle school, which is a point I'll come back to. DEAL also serves about 140 multi-language learners and 140 at-risk students, which is more than the total of those number of those students at many other DCPS middle schools. So there's 3 points I want to make. One is around multi-language learners. One is on the need for budget stability year to year, including a ratified teacher contract. I was happy to hear the emphasis on supporting staff. And then third is ensuring large schools receive the resources they need. I should know I'm also a parent of a student at Jackson Reed, and so experience the large high school as well. So first, multi-language learners. DCPS, of course, provides some funding and supports for staff, but we're finding it insufficient. Students not yet fluent in English sit in classes like science and social studies, unable to fully participate and engage, making it challenging for the students and for the teachers who are trying to reach all of the students in their classroom. So we hope that DCPS can carefully consider the comprehensive supports and structures multi-language learners need to succeed. Second is budget stability is crucial. The supplemental funds received last spring due to council mandated funding was crucial for retaining staff in the building, including having instructional coaches at each grade level to support math and ELA instruction happening across 5 teams in each grade. But every year there's a scramble of whether those funds will be there and actually come through, making it really hard to plan. Relatedly, there does need to be a ratified teacher contract, which is currently expired, to ensure that sufficient planning and avoid unexpected budget implications at the last minute. So we're very nervous about the changing funds and potential lack of stability. So want to hear more about that. And then third is the challenge of large schools. DCPS often allocates resources on a per school basis. For example, a set amount for social emotional program for nursing, where DEAL and Jackson Reed share 1 nurse for 3,500 students. Other clusters have 1 nurse for about 1,000 students. There's also similar challenges with respect to mental health and school counselor ratios. Economies of scale don't make up for just the needs that large schools have. So I know I'm out of time, so just want to reinforce these points around consistent and sufficient budgets that allow them to operate. So thank you so much for doing this, and I look forward to hearing the other testimonies.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, up next is Laura Nuremberg. Hi, Laura.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Laura Nuremberg, and I'm testifying as an Ammon and Bowen parent, the LSAT co-chair, and a member of the PTA. Tonight, we want to highlight 3 asks. First, we need more funding for behavioral supports. We don't have enough resources for it, period. We need more staff and behavioral curriculum. Second, we're also funding a behavior tech for the CES self-contained classroom. Not doing so was not an option, but this means that DCPS's self-contained classrooms continue to be an unfunded mandate. Instead of asking, how can we set up students with disabilities for success, DCPS is funding the bare minimum. We ask that DCPS fully funds their self-contained classrooms and stop requiring schools to redirect their limited resources to cover what is considered to be a DCPS-run program. Third, we ask that DCPS works to mitigate the large number of vacant positions by A, being more flexible about the requirements for each position, and B, offering a livable wage in the case of paraprofessionals. To the point A, we have 2 vacant social worker positions through Hillcrest and Department of Behavioral Health. This means there are no social worker supports for students without IEPs because our school-funded social workers are maxed out with students with IEPs. There was a person in training who was great, but he had a school counselor degree, so could not fulfill the position longer term. If there are many vacant positions, such as with social workers, DCPS needs to allow different types of credentialed and appropriate persons to fill these roles so our students don't get shortchanged. To point B, In addition to the vacant social worker positions, we also have 4 vacant positions for paraprofessionals. These vacancies are in part due to the non-livable wage offered to paraprofessionals in DC. We need more people in the building to support our students, but we cannot change the salary and job requirements for paraprofessionals. We need DCPS to make this a better job with better pay so we can get people in the building to support our students. We're encouraged to see the separate funding streams for students classified as at risk and those with IEPs in the new DCPS budget model. But we need DCPS to provide more resources to address the very real behavior needs, as well as make sure that even if a position is funded, it won't remain vacant. Funding is the first step, but it doesn't matter if we can't get people in the building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laura. All right, let's move on to our third. We have Asante Moten. I'm sorry, before Asante, I said Asante Nasir.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Asante Moten. I attend Anacostia. I also have a 3.4 and I go to college track. What I would really like to see an improvement in is the technology. It's really holding us back as it takes longer to process small things. It wastes like 20 minutes to log in. It's holding me back in class. And then another thing I would like to talk about is an increase on the budget of the track team. I run track as well. It's limiting where we can travel. We don't have access to many places. We only get 2 meets a year, like 2 meets a year. Our coach has to pay out of his pocket, and it's not making the experience really well. That's really it. Thank you. That's good.
Great. Is there anything else? I don't want to end early.
No, thank you, Mel.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming. And just so folks know, we will be engaging with our students as well in December. So maybe we'll see you again, Asante. Thank you. All right. Our fourth this evening is Andrew Pratt.
Hi, all. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Andrew Pratt. I have a 4th grader and a 2nd grader at Brent Elementary School, and I am a member of the Brent Equity and Inclusion Group. Brent is an affluent community and is largely white. Given the ongoing racial disparities in our city's education system, I want to speak briefly on the impact of the budgeting process last year on the most marginalized students within our community. Now, I understand and support the district government goals on equitable budgeting. Schools with higher needs should get more. And I also know that the current economic climate means looking closely at all agency budgets. As DCPS begins the budget process for schools, it's my belief that significant budget cuts should not hit schools with stable enrollment and stable populations of multilingual learners and students with IEPs. Brent, like other non-Title I schools, lost the maximum 5% of last year's budget despite stable enrollment across populations. Then through the Students First Act, funding was restored by DC Council. But that funding was restored imperfectly. The council received inaccurate data about positions at individual schools. And these inaccuracies largely worked in the positive for other schools having funding restored, but not for Brent. This year, LSATs should get the right to recheck the staff position data to ensure that funding adjustments are made based on actual accurate staffing information. Our principal has mapped out another 5% cut for the coming year, and the school would lose 2 special education teachers. And we would then have fewer people than required to actually serve students with IEPs in our school population. This will impact most the kids who have right to these additional services. In order to ensure that the members of our community who are entitled to specialized services can have access to the right staff, my ask is that DCPS take steps to ensure more transparency in the budgeting process, with enough time for school-based teams to ensure the accuracy of staffing data and budget data. This is necessary to ensure equitable services for all of our students. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I'd like to go to Jean Stritch next.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me?
There we go.
There it is.
Yep.
I'm Jean Blackerby-Stritch. I'm a parent to a fourth grader and a pre-K student at Brent. I'm also co-president of the Brent Elementary PTA, and thank you for the chance to testify. I agree with the comments raised by Andrew, and first want to echo what he expressed, including Brent's commitment to equity, both in and through the budgeting process. Our school community supports the drive to deliver equity through budgeting throughout DCPS and within our school. Given the challenges we experienced with last year's budget cycle, however, we have two major concerns. First, we're concerned about the impact of what seems to be an assumption that non-Title I schools will be able to handle 5% cuts year after year. In reality, we can't account for that heavy of a reduction without it negatively affecting the students who need the most support within our school, as Andrew mentioned. Second, we're troubled by the lack of transparency in numerous facets of the budget process that occurred last year, including initial budgeting, the petition process, and the restoration of funds last year through the Students First Act. We believe the lack of transparency was detrimental both to our school and across the system. Regarding the impact of the 5% cuts, as Andrew mentioned, we looked into what would need to take place if we received a similar cut in the current budget cycle. The most likely scenarios, as Andrew mentioned, include the loss of 2 special education teachers, with leaving us with fewer people to serve those who need it most in our school community, and the potential loss of kindergarten partner teachers, leaving us with less staff at a year when we typically introduce a number of out-of-boundary students and have our largest class sizes. Our passion for equity extends among the school communities as well as within our own school community. And when we map out the impact, it can occur without hurting the kids in our school community with the greatest needs. And Bree Erickson will next mention some more details regarding the lack of transparency that we view as having occurred last year in the budget process. We'd like to see the budget process improve for the sake of all schools and the students they serve. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Jean. And like you mentioned, teeing up our final speaker in group 1 is Brianna Erickson.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brianna Erickson. I am the parent of a 4th grader and a kindergartner at Brent Elementary, as well as a future DCPS student. And I'm also a member of the Brent Elementary LSAT. I agree with previous testifiers, Andrew and Jean, on our community's commitment to equity within DCPS, as well as our school community. And just want to echo the perspective that increased budgets for schools that with the greatest need shouldn't necessarily automatically mean that schools like Brent experience the greatest losses despite having stable populations of multilingual learners and students receiving special education services. Like many other schools, if the city's economic situation, as Chancellor Fairby mentioned, lead our school's budget to be cut 5% again for 2025. We've looked at various scenarios, as Jean mentioned, including the possibility of having to reduce special education teachers and or kindergarten partner teachers. And we're really at the point where we don't have excess staff. We would be cutting essential services, having fewer teachers than required to serve students with the greatest need. And then looking ahead to this 2025 budget cycle, we would ask to see several processes and transparency issues realigned for this year, things that we experienced during the 2024 cycle. Now that the Students First Act has been in place for a while, we're looking for transparency in how it's implemented for the 25 budget cycle. It's sort of 4 things from our perspective that we noticed last year. First, wanting a clearly defined and transparently executed petition process. Schools need equal opportunity during the petition process for the restoration of funds. Second, LSATs, as Andrew mentioned, need a chance to review position data prior to budget allocations. Last year, the council received inaccurate data about the positions at Brent Elementary, but not only at our schools, we heard from other LSATs that the information there for their schools as well was incorrect. For example, identifying positions being restored that hadn't existed in the first place. And then third, school communities need accurate budget narratives from the very beginning. Last year, each line in ours was inaccurate, but historically, those narratives have been something that we could count on as the why behind budget changes. And then lastly, would just, looking for the inclusion of WTU teacher salary increases to be reflected in the budget, and for the salary and benefits numbers and the teacher FTE numbers that are used in the DCPS budgets to also match those used in the council's formulas and budgets as well. That's all. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you so much, and some helpful suggestions around working with LSATs. All right, we're going to go ahead and call group 2. Hopefully we don't miss anyone. We've been trying to follow who's coming in and out of the meeting. So I will call the next group of 6. The first is Nidria Humphreys. Then we have Christopher Austin, Sheila Carson-Carr, Kathy Riley, Grace Hu, and finally Scott Goldstein. All right, so Nidria, you're up first. If I missed anyone from that group who hasn't arrived yet, we'll come back.
Hello?
Yes, hi, you're on in Spotlight. All right.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Nidria Humphreys, and I am a teacher at Brightwood Elementary School in Northwest Washington, D.C. I am here today just to say thank you for this opportunity, and also what DCPS is doing as far as equity. I really appreciate it. But the reason why I am on this call today is for 3 reasons. The first is I am asking if DCPS could possibly have a request for proposals, maybe for before care, with hopes that maybe money will be appropriated for before care for parents and single moms, as well as DC teachers. It's just really hard sometimes to get your child to school or your children to school. I have 2 who have to be at school after you. So I was wondering if it was a possibility if DCPS could put that in their budget. Also, although my 2-year-old will be attending DCPS next school year because he'll be 3, I had also spoken with the WTU and also my councilwoman, who is Janice Lewis George, about whether there can be some type of daycare stipend for teachers, because the federal government, they actually offer stipends for their employees. Basically, last year, Americans were able to receive a child tax credit if they made under $200,000 a year. This credit was implemented under President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan. Basically, our government came to a consensus that the income level for individuals to receive such a credit should fall under $200,000. So why should working individuals in DC with dependents not qualify for daycare, any type of help? So I would like for DCPS to support my ideas that's already been generated throughout the agency and also now the city council. The U.S. government also realizes that America needs help with childcare. It's just really expensive because of the government has appropriated funding for its employees to receive stipends. Also, another issue that I want to raise is for maybe there to be monies appropriated for a liaison for the teacher, maybe a teacher licensure oversight, because the process is extremely stressful. I've been
Andrea, we are at
applying
time.
for.
So if you could just complete this.
Okay.
thought. Okay. Yeah, just
Yeah, I'm
complete this
almost
thought.
done. This is the
Okay.
last one. Yeah, I would like to see the process to renew teacher licenses to improve. And that's about it. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for taking time after a long day working with our students to come. All right, we will move on in the list. The next person I have is Christopher Austin.
Hello, good morning. Good evening, everybody. My name is Christopher Austin. I'm a parent of a third grader at Capitol Hill Montessori School in DC. One thing that I noticed my son's first year at the school, but I know that he's particularly complained just about the school food. Just looking at the budgets, I know that sometimes when we look at education and health, that nutrition is one thing that's always been lacking, just nationwide as far as the schools, even back when I remember being in school. Just wanted to see there can be something in the budget that can allocate better nutritional options, especially since I know we already accommodate for like a lot of nut allergies, but just more so, more about better just nutrition as far as what can be offered at the schools, and also like the proportions as well. I know that a lot of kids, they're growing kids, and sometimes a lot of times what they may have on their plate, even if they want to go back and bring and eat something else, they'll complain about, hey, my son complains like, well, I can't go back and get other options, either one or two things, and it's kind of becoming a recurring thing. And I said, well, if they're not giving you guys that much to eat, or some of those things. So that's one thing that I just saw that can be better, just within DCPS, because I believe a lot of times the food that we give our children can affect their learning as well. So that's all of that I had to bring up, and thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Austin. All right, I will go ahead. The next is Sheila Carson-Carr.
Good afternoon or good evening. Yes, my name is Sheila Carson-Carr, and I'm a Ward 7 resident, and I have 3 grandchildren in DCPS, and also the co-founder of Decoding Dyslexia DC. I'm here tonight to talk about the allocation of budget money for the law 23-191 about dyslexia and struggling readers. I want to make sure, because the law is now requiring that K through second graders are screened, and if the screeners show at risk of having a reading difficulty, that the LEA shall provide remediation and intervention. And I wanted to make sure that the budget will reflect the need for this evaluation intervention. And also that the law also says that starting school year 24-25, the LEA should adopt the science-based reading program. I haven't heard anything about that. And, in the public, for parents and community to be a part of that, and we want to make sure that we have adequate money in the budget to make sure we get a good program. And that the main thing is about teacher training. If we want to come up like Mississippi did in 5 years, because it takes time, it's not something that's overnight, we have to train all of the teachers now. We're going to have to pull them out the building like Mississippi did for 2 days and train them during the day, have support in the building if we are serious about really making a change and having our children read on grade level. And lastly, that when you're doing the budget, please make sure that the special ed teachers have some input on the budget in their buildings, because I'm hearing a lot of special ed teachers telling me that they don't have any input and they're not getting their necessary equipment and programs and things for the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carson-Carr. We will make a note of involving the special education teachers as well with LSATs. Our next speaker is Kathy Riley.
Hi, thank you very much. Well, first I'd like to say, Chancellor Farabee, you've had a very long day. Anybody that saw that hearing, think you were there for 5 or 6 hours. I appreciate this opportunity to testify and give input into your budget process. It's a vital and precious part of being a democratic public education institution. I facilitate the monthly meetings for SHAPE, C4DC, and the Ward 4 Education Alliance. Today at the hearing, the DC Policy Center noted that the coming year for DCPS is going to be very challenging. The percentage of the budget that is UPSFF will be less, as the COVID and other funds supplementing it will be reduced. When this goes away as a system, DCPS with your communities will need to prioritize, look for other resources, and efficiently employ what we have. These are the top areas I hear about, and much of it parallels what you identified in the slides. Stability, work to avoid what is perceived and understood to be a budget shortfall in schools with the initial and final budgets. The instability of losing staff and then getting a windfall has been stressful. While additional funds have been welcome, the cost of this way of operating has been substantial. There was a day when DCPS and its communities went to the council together. So I'd like to see the return of that day. Swing space, at least in our community, at Ward 4, this has come up a lot with Whittier. I hear it with Burroughs. I hear it with the Ward 6 communities. So this is something we still have to struggle with to see what we can figure out so that communities can be closer to home when they have to go into swing space. And reducing turnover to support and nurture relationships, build energy and community, help with mental health challenges. So to this point, Scott Goldstein will work on that with the Empower Ed testimony. With equity, which would be the second bucket, digital equity will go into, we support their recommendations and the high need for providing those services. And as a system, even to what Asante said, and this is one thing that I think troubles you all and troubles me. We have tremendous inequity in terms of what our students are exposed to, partly because of small schools and large schools and different communities. But I really support the equity imperative and expanding on that and figuring out how we can collaborate and do a better job with that. And then in the few weeks, students are going to be told they can't return to school unless they're up to date with their immunizations. So for this, I'm targeting the school nurse issue, which is Department of Health, not completely in your bucket, but we need your advocacy on that. The new cluster model has meant that there's a number of schools that have nobody there on any given day. So we need your advocacy to say we have to do better with this. I mean, part of it is we have so many schools, but we have to keep struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up, we have Grace Hu.
Good evening. My name is Grace Hu, and I'm one of the parent co-leads of the Digital Equity and DC Education Parent Group. Chancellor Farabee, I want to acknowledge that we've been engaging your central office team for 5 years now on technology and want to recognize that the school system has made significant improvements in technology infrastructure. So I want to appreciate your efforts in supporting that. But the work is not quite done yet. For the FY25 budget, we ask that you continue to meet the mayor's commitment to provide an appropriate device for every student in grades 3 to 12, that you reconsider how you allocate funds to support local school budgets for other technology needs that are not currently centrally funded, and you provide more support for school level asset management, which continues to be a barrier to effective technology management and use at our schools. On funding for tech refresh, technology costs, including to pay for replacement of old devices and smartboards, are known costs that are largely predictable from year to year. But despite this, there's still no stable funding for tech refresh, as reflected in the last-minute decision last summer to cancel procurement of devices to replace the first-generation Microsoft Surface Gos due to lack of funding. Not only does this lack of stability directly impact schools' ability to support day-to-day learning, it runs counter to the mayor's commitment to provide a 1-to-1 student device ratio for all students in grades 3 to 12. On local school budgets, under the current DCPS budget framework, schools remain responsible for purchasing the following: computers for school staff who are not teachers, replacement chargers for laptops, headphones, and other accessories, printers and ink cartridges, and computers and other IT for media centers and computer labs. This continues to place burdens on school budgets, with the result being that students use outdated equipment or cannot fully use the equipment they do have. This year, one DCPS middle school resorted to using donorschoose.org to raise more than $6,000 for laptop chargers. They did this, otherwise they would have had to resort to distributing laptops with no chargers. One Ward 8 middle school told us that a year ago, only about half their devices had working chargers. So a teacher had to arrive at school around 7 a.m. every day to change out the chargers to the other half of their devices. The workarounds that schools make due to lack of adequate funding for laptop replacement parts and accessories causes significant disruption and frustration for students and school staff. And lastly, schools level asset management support is still inadequate. We still do not understand why DCPS has not provided additional asset management support to schools, including asking Octo for more help in this area. Until we address the challenges with school level asset management, we will not be maximizing the use of our technology assets to provide a seamless teaching and learning experience. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Perfect timing, Grace. Thank you so much. Scott, I see your video is on. You are next. This is Scott Goldstein.
Good evening. My name is Scott Goldstein. I am a proud DCPS parent, former DCPS teacher, and the executive director of the DC Teacher Organization Empower Ed, which works with DC teachers across all 8 wards. We listen to teachers every year on their priorities for change, but we also partner deeply with schools on educator wellness and work with school leaders every day to hear their needs. While our testimony is going to focus on systemic priorities, full funding of every DCPS school, including higher at-risk concentration funding, should be the base for that. First, to strengthen recruitment, support, and retention of our educators, we ask you strategically work to bolster teacher induction and mentoring programs. All DC educators should start with a strong foundational knowledge of high expertise teaching that represents a shared vision of pedagogical approach across schools while entrusting educators with professional autonomy. We also need to de-emphasize testing to allow educators the time and space to do the things we've asked them to do and do them well. We ask that you make a significant investment in permanent subs for our schools to ensure that every school has at least one permanent substitute per 300 students. Next, DCPS should invest in win-win solutions like flexible scheduling. These models allow educators more time to plan, collaborate, and protect their own well-being and work-life balance while dramatically enriching and personalizing the student experience. But we ask that you not only invest in this from the point of view of giving more time for data analysis or planning, which are both important, but to also give teachers time back and trust them with it. Educator wellness is important for its own sake, and it serves our students. We ask you learn the lessons of the pandemic and set a policy and ensure a new teacher contract includes no fewer than 2 explicit mental health days on top of sick leave. We also ask for you to expand the DCPS Connected School model, which is incredibly successful. DCPS has invested in bringing holistic supports of connected schools to every Ward 7 and 8 middle school. Now it's time to bring it to every DCPS middle school and all the schools with the highest at-risk populations. Second, the city heard consistently in the student assignment town hall process that the community is demanding an expansion of dual language models, which we think needs to happen equitably throughout the city, as well as an expansion of the global studies model and theme at existing schools, which we believe should be expanded as well. Finally, we believe we can bridge parent and community funding inequities and enhance student learning experiences and improve attendance by establishing a citywide experiential learning microgrant fund that any educator can apply to and be provided timely funding to bring experiential, project-based, and field-based learning to life for the students they serve. As of this month, November 2023, DC educators have a total of 408,000 outstanding donor choose requests on the internet, not including funding requests through parent organizations, Kickstarter campaigns, or others. Educators should not be depending on PTO funding or spending their limited time fundraising on donor shoes to provide rich academic experiences to students, and a micro grant fund for experiential learning can achieve that when also increasing student engagement. We must focus on enhancing supports for students with disabilities, English language learners, and do everything in our power to enhance school-based behavioral health. Thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott, so much. All right, everyone, we're going to head into group 3. Group 3 will start with Molly Ellis. Next, we go to Geronimo Robinson, Troy Kravitz, Kishan Puta, Caroline Mehta, and Elizabeth Mitchell. Molly, I see you have your camera on. Thank you. You can go ahead and get started.
Hi, thank you so much. I am here in 2 capacities. One is a DCPS parent and one is a DCPS teacher. I don't have anything as eloquent as the people before me to share. Just here to voice concern about the budget transparency and the issues with the schools who lost funding last year not having the adequate time to prepare responses and be ready to deal with that shortfall in their budget. On the teacher side, it was extremely challenging mentally to show up to work the next day knowing that I was probably the teacher who was going to lose my job when my school's budget got cut. And then on the parent side, just voicing that our kids need their teachers to feel stable and safe in their jobs. And when the schools are faced with their budget cuts at the last minute, the teachers feel that and it trickles down to the kids. So I'm just asking for more transparency with the budget and, if possible, more notice if anything happens.
Thank you, Molly, for taking the time this evening. I'd like to call up Geronimo Robinson.
Okie doke. My name is Geronimo Robinson. Good evening, everyone. I'm the president of Hardy Middle School PTO. Hardy Middle School has the 2nd lowest per pupil non-personnel allocation across all DC public schools, middle schools, while simultaneously having the 2nd highest number of students per general education. No other public school, middle school compares. This is only possible because Hardy's per pupil total funding allocation is just 64% of the DC public school middle school average. One of my colleagues, Troy Kravitz, has put together this data to show the inequity and inadequate funding that has plagued this group for several years now. We have asked the DC public schools look at repurposing unspent funds from DC public schools to Hardy to help fill the school's needs. So since so many items we seek funding for appear to be essential, I'm a little confused about the need for the PTO to continue advocating for these necessities. But given the urgency of need, here's a list of some of the items we need funding for. Custodial supplies, musical instruments, educational supplies, office supplies, intervention programming for special ed, furniture, basic furniture we still need, sports uniforms, and printing. The needs of the Hardy School are many. The resources currently in place are few. In addition, there's a serious need for campus security, since the gates of the surrounding walkways are open and the members of the public frequently appear in the middle of the school grounds during the school day. While this is always a security risk, it is particularly problematic when the students are exiting and entering the school en masse during lunch, recess, and or PE. Ideally, an additional amount of funding would be provided to install security gates on the 34th Street and 35th Street entrances to campus. The cost of those security gates have not been estimated yet. Waiting for the DC government to address these safety needs seems reckless. We hope that any and all funds not already allocated this year can be reallocated to be used to help increase the funds needed for the Hardy Middle School to pay for these items mentioned in this testimony, because time is of the essence, and we see Hardy Middle School as a stepchild. And we would prefer to see it as one of the schools which gets the adequate amount of support it needs to be a good functioning school. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geronimo. Good to put a face with a name. Troy Kravitz, good to see you. You're up next.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about the real-world implications of Hardy Middle School continually being shortchanged budgetarily. I'll also touch on the need for MacArthur High School to receive the full-sized auditorium DCPS promised the school community. Last year, 84% of Hardy's core classes had over 25 students, and 44% had at least 30 students. This year is only slightly better. Still close to 1 out of every 2 core classes exceeds the W2U contract limit of 25 students. For 6th graders entering an entirely new school environment, 60% of core classes exceed 25 students, and a quarter have at least 30 students. The classroom environment for Hardy students suffers from classes that are too packed. Their education suffers. Hardy needs more teachers. Hardy has 2 assistant principals for over 600 students. The school employs fewer custodians than DCPS recommends. Simply put, Hardy is not spending money on non-instructional personnel. Custodial supplies are non-existent. Lab supplies, books for ELA, math manipulatives, animals for dissection, musical instruments, heck, toilet paper. The DCPS budget is not providing any of them. Hardy's per pupil funding allocation is just 64% of the DCPS middle school average. The effect is classes that are too crowded, administrative and support staff that are stretched too thinly, and non-personnel items that are non-existent. The solution is unmistakable. DCPS needs to increase Hardy's funding allocation to reflect the specific programming within the school. Hardy's staffing must reflect the school's deaf and hard of hearing and autism programs that require many teachers for few students. DCPS needs to fund Hardy for Hardy. The budget allocation must embrace the specialized programming at Hardy so that staffing can be commensurate with the unique needs of the student population. Prior to joining the Hardy LSAT, I was on the MacArthur High School Community Working Group and the Foxhall MacArthur CWG before that. When MacArthur High School was conceived and developed, and throughout the entire time it was pitched to the student community, it always explicitly included the construction of an auditorium. For example, in a recorded meeting before 200 attendees, DCPS Deputy Chief of Facilities stated, quote, "In the mayor's proposed budget, we submitted for a $45 million addition for MacArthur Boulevard High School. This addition is really intended to add a fixed seat auditorium. The school itself, when we purchased it, has a wonderful black box theater, but did not have that true fixed seat auditorium, which is something we have in all of our neighborhood high schools," end quote. Every school in instructional cluster 8 except MacArthur has an auditorium. DCPS lists 22 schools taking 9th through 12th graders. Only one of them, School Without Walls, doesn't have an auditorium. As DCPS Deputy Chief said, a full-sized auditorium is something we have in all of our neighborhood high schools. DCPS needs to fulfill its repeated public promises to construct a full-sized auditorium at MacArthur High School. A school improvement team for phase 2 of the MacArthur renovation should be convened immediately and be singularly dedicated to ensuring the district's $77 million renovation plan for MacArthur is appropriate and faithfully executed. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Perfect timing. Let's go on to, I've lost up to Kishan Puta.
Hello, Sarah. Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's Kishan Putta, and I am an ANC commissioner in Ward 2, in 2E, representing Georgetown, Burleith, and Hillendale. And it's great to follow Geronimo from Hardy. And to the point that was just raised about the new high school, new MacArthur High School, and the auditorium, I was on that committee as well with you, Sarah. And yeah, I would echo the comments about making sure that there's an auditorium for those students at the new high school that was promised. It really is necessary as they're building up a new culture for this new school to have a common space to be able to have full school-wide events and addresses, student elections, theater. There's limited land for athletics at this place, but at least an auditorium would be a needed amenity. It would really be a shame to not have it. So please try to get that into the budget. On auditoriums, at Hardy Middle School, this year's budget that was passed by the council last year included funding for a new cafeteria, because the school is getting so much bigger and the cafeteria is very packed and crowded. It's the loudest room I've ever been in my life. My eardrums are still recovering. The Hardy auditorium, the Hardy new cafeteria, new lockers for Hardy Middle School, and the budget also included a study just a study of the old auditorium. There were addresses in there that I was in there for last year where you could not hear what was being said from most of the auditorium. Their school play had to be held. Well, they were looking for another place for it. They had to bring in speakers just to be able to possibly hear the students. I went for it. It was Annie, and it was really nice to see, but very not nice to hear. The school needs a new auditorium. There is money in this year's budget for a study. What I'm worried about is the study hasn't even come close to starting, and we need to put in funding for the full renovation of the auditorium. So the study was to find out how much it would cost and what needs to be done. So I really want that study to be done. We've been pushing the council and DGS to start this study so we can get back to you on numbers, and so we can put it in the budget for next year. What good is calling for a study if you don't have the study? And time is just going to go by, and these kids are going to be 3 years of Hardy Middle School and be out of there and never see a decent auditorium. So please, let's get the study done. Please, let's get the funding for the auditorium. Lastly, Hyde Addison Elementary School on O Street in Georgetown. I'll just say it's a historic, narrow cobblestone street that is jam-packed for drop-off and pickup. It is the crossing guards, when they're not there, it's very dangerous. I know crossing guards are DDOT, but it's very confusing for the public to deal with the two agencies, yours and DDOT, when it comes to crossing guards. Please help us to figure this out, to how to get crossing guards to these schools that need it, like Hyde. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kishan. All right, let's go to our fifth in group 4. We are looking at Caroline Mehta and then Elizabeth Mitchell.
Hi, thank you all. First of all, as a Hardy alum or a Hardy family alum, I want to echo my support for everything that folks have said on behalf of Hardy. A group of parents and I were able to put on kind of the first musical that they'd had there in many, many years when my daughter was a 6th grader 5 years ago. And it was wonderful until the performance when you couldn't actually hear them. So this is clearly on the auditorium theme. I'm now here as a parent of a junior at Jackson Reed High School, and I find myself in a very privileged place in the sense that the funding for the repairs to Jackson Reed Auditorium has been approved and is sitting in an account. Last year, after many years of calling attention to the state of Jackson Reed's auditorium, with the support of multiple constituencies, we made the case directly to the council, and we got the desperately needed funds. Those funds have been available since October 1st. Now we're going into Thanksgiving week. What I understand is that DGS visited the school this week to talk about beginning the process of an assessment. This is kind of outrageous because many, many months ago, one of our former directors, Karen Harris, offered up the names of reliable, affordable, third-party professionals who could complete an assessment. One gave an estimate of $600. So here we are, the largest school in DCPS, 2,000 students from every ward in the city. A decrepit auditorium still sits there dark and locked. And students who gain their socialization, engagement, self-esteem from the arts continue to be disregarded. And the impact is not just to theater. It is to like choir concerts, assemblies, band concerts, orchestra. There's no lights. So any events that are held in events that can be held in other part of the buildings are just stuck in places that have terrible acoustics. Mr. Iowanek, our theater teacher, who's amazing, has done his best to host plays in the small black box theater. He's been heroic and creative, but a fraction of the students get to be in the cast and crew. Dozens of students who a few years ago learned and performed the entire score of Les Miserables in the auditorium don't get to be a part of the musical. The spring musical is honestly, in Jackson Reed's history, a Broadway-worthy event that draws the entire community. But if we don't get these fixes started, and frankly, on their way to full completion by March, another group of students won't have that experience. Look, we're a self-sustaining theater program. Let's just get to the money. In the black box theater, we can sell seats for 150 tickets. In the auditorium, it's 800 plus. We're asking for a timeline. We're asking for action. Our optimism, frankly, has given way to anger. And 2 entire classes of students in the largest high school in DCPS have never set foot in an auditorium. And we'd like some action. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And finally, for the group, Elizabeth Mitchell.
My school is slated to lose millions of dollars over the next few years. We will have to cut teachers and programming year after year, and it will deeply impact our ability to meet our students' needs, and we will have no hope of helping our most vulnerable students. These cuts seem to have no connection to enrollment or need or be tied to any sort of sensible metric. Our school is not alone in this. When we look at the budgets across the city, we see the same thing. DCPS is slashing funding rather than helping schools build back as we continue to recover from the ravages of the pandemic. Council certainly discussed these issues and the massive fiscal cliff you're pushing us over during today's hearing. Instead, I'd like to discuss the issues with the budget process from the LSAT perspective, since it's something you have complete control over and can actually fix before you leave the room tonight. First, give us the time we're supposed to have with these budgets. We're supposed to have weeks, not days. If you can't give us the weeks we're legally owed, then let us tell you what money we need before so we can start the work ahead of time. You might not be ready, but we are, and we know what our schools need. Let us give you our number before you tell us what the mayor has decided our number should be. Forcing parents and teachers to sit for a surprise budget final exam in the 2 days before winter break is not only cruel and unusual, but it's also inequitable. Not every parent and teacher has time or ability to drop everything else and do a deep dive into these budgets and turn around with useful feedback in less than 48 hours when we all have full-time jobs and full-time lives. Second, give our principals the ability to ask for what they actually need. You told our principals what they were allowed to ask for last year. In doing so, you take an invaluable communication tool away from every single school across the city. This process is supposed to be collaborative and a moment for you to hear from us about what our needs are. Instead, that conversation is shut down before it happens, and we're forced to cut programs we actually need with zero opportunity to truly appeal. We were supposed to be able to add notes and context, but those comment boxes didn't work. Most people left the process not only feeling used and abused, but completely disrespected. Third, give us the information we need to achieve the best budgets possible. This happens so often, it has to be intentional. Give us the information in an easily accessible and shareable format. Make it consistent. We only had 2 days, but spent about half that time trying not only to navigate the incoherent system, but also trying to cross-reference everything with what we were given with the information we had so we can ensure we were all on the same page. Total waste of time. Fourth, fully fund our public schools. Start fighting for us rather than against us. This is not the city of my youth. We are rich. There is no reason our public schools should be denied any reasonable budget requests. We have the ability and capacity to fully fund public schools, but we are choosing not to. The mayor has all of the power, and I understand that you work for her and report to her, but you are supposed to be working for us and with us. Instead, you have set up a completely chaotic and adversarial budget process that not only leaves students and communities behind, but seems to ingrain and enshrine the inequity you are seeking to alleviate. Fix it now. Fix it before the mad February budget rush so we can actually work with you to get what we all need rather than fighting against each other for scraps. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'd like to call the next group. I'll call 6 names and then everyone can come up in the correct order. We'll start with Sheila Bunn, then Dory Nolt, Allison Fitzsimmons, Emily Blake, Maureen Corin, and Nisa Harper. First, we have Sheila Bunn. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. Good evening, Chancellor Fairby and other DCPS members. Thank you for hosting this hearing. I am Sheila Bunn. As a parent of an 8th grader at Jefferson Middle School Academy, I am here to share testimony that focuses on several key advocacy themes, including technology and facility upgrades. A product myself of DC Public Schools, I believe that strong public schools are essential in making us all better citizens of the city and can be a force for community engagement and greater integration across the city. That being said, I want to express my strong support for increased funding for all of our middle schools, Jefferson included, as well as our Title I schools that serve populations with greater needs. As a parent, co-president of the Jefferson Family Teacher Organization, and Jefferson LSAT member, I have witnessed firsthand the positive impact that adequate resources can have on our students' education and overall school environment. Jefferson Middle School Academy has a proud tradition of academic excellence and a commitment to fostering a loving, nurturing, and inclusive learning environment. However, like many of our middle schools, we face ongoing challenges that require sustained financial support from central office. The allocation of additional funds would directly contribute to the following crucial areas within our middle schools. Technology infrastructure. In today's digital age, access to up-to-date technology is essential for students' academic success. Additional funding would enable Jefferson and other middle schools to invest in modernizing its technology infrastructure, ensuring that students have access to the tools and resources necessary for 21st century learning, i.e., one-to-one computers for students. Specifically, we need devices that are big enough for students to actually type on efficiently, that are durable, and that have enough memory and processing speed to start up in a reasonable amount of time and run the program students need without delays. Facility upgrades. A safe and conducive learning environment is essential for students' well-being. Now that many school buildings, including Jefferson, have been modernized, it is imperative that DCPS properly fund each school so that necessary facility maintenance, repairs, and improvements occur without fail in order to contribute to the overall quality of the school environment. As an example, at Jefferson, several of our students do not have lockers because about 25 of them have been broken since last school year. Enhanced educational programs. Increased funding would allow Jefferson and other middle schools to expand and improve their educational programming. This includes investing in innovative teaching methods like iReady Math and Reading, expanding programming to include dual language or language immersion, updating curriculum materials, and providing professional development opportunities for teachers to stay current with best practices. In conclusion, improved support of all of our middle schools, Jefferson included, as well as our Title I schools that serve populations with greater needs, is an investment in the future of our community. Thank you for your time, dedication, and commitment to the education of our students. I trust that you will make the best decision for the future of Jefferson Middle School Academy and all of our middle schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Dory Nolt, you're up next.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. I'm Dory Nolt. I'm the parent of a first grade student at Langley Elementary. My son started there in pre-K 3, so this is our 4th year at Langley. We love our school because it's a neighborhood school, which means my son's best friends and classmates live just blocks from us. The teachers and administrators at Langley work hard every day to make sure my son and his classmates feel loved and accepted. He loves the music room, his STEM classes, and the school garden. Langley is a school on the rise. We are a Title I school serving a high percentage of special needs students. More than half of our students are considered at risk and 9% experience homelessness. And yet we've made huge leaps forward in the last few years. Unfortunately, our school building does not reflect the amazing teaching and learning that happens there every day. Our building was supposed to be modernized in 2018, but the PACE Act pushed us down the modernization list for more than a decade. The equity that the PACE Act brought to many schools worked against Langley and our largely at-risk population. As it is, my child, who's in 1st grade, will never see a modernized Langley. Our building is in need of major repairs, and our students shouldn't have to wait any longer to get the facility they deserve. Modernization for Langley should be moved up. When we do begin the modernization process, which right now is slated to begin in 2028, we hope that Langley will be able to move around the corner to the swing space at the Emory building. It is the least disruptive space for our school community because the vast majority of our school families live in the neighborhood and bike or walk to school. We're grateful that DCPS is finally replacing our ancient HVAC system, but the installation is months over deadline. It was supposed to be done in August, and we have no timeline for when it's going to be complete. This winter, our school will be heated by a temporary boiler on the outside of the building. As you might have seen, we're supposed to have the coldest and snowiest winter in 5 years. What happens if our boiler breaks? The school no longer has radiators that we can use to ensure that the kids are warm. We need a date for when this project will be done. Our school leadership has asked repeatedly and has gotten no answers. This brings me to a larger issue. We need more transparency into how DCPS prioritizes school facility work orders. Work orders go into the system, but information does not come out, and we don't have no idea when they're going to be fulfilled and why some projects are prioritized over others. Some work orders sit for months or even years and require frequent and frantic calls from our administrators. Parents have to take time out of work to email and call DCPS, DGS, and the council to get attention for emergency repairs like a broken front door or broken heat. Parents should not have to spend our time begging for basic maintenance of our students' school buildings. My final request is that DCPS find a way to continue funding key support positions like our Connected Schools Manager and our High Impact Tutoring Manager. The Chancellor mentioned the high impact tutoring earlier. It has been critical for our school community to have the kids get extra help that they need to catch up for more than a year of virtual learning. Okay, I can wrap up. Thank you all very much for this opportunity, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Just make sure we have your written testimony, everyone. The next person is Allison Fitzsimmons.
Hi, my name is Allison Fitzsimmons, and I am the co-chair for the Murch Elementary LSAT. I want to apologize first. My testimony says dear council members. I think I just got mixed up with the testimonies. So I want to say, as a member of the DCPS Murch Elementary LSAT, we are requesting that our school's overall funding be at least maintained for the 2025-2026. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, my little one is acting up right now. Last year, Murch Elementary graciously received a one-time allocation of funds to address an unexpected significant mid-school year increase in enrollment that was not accounted for in the initial calculation of the school budget formula. This allocation allowed Murch to hire 2 additional teachers, which relieved overcrowding in the current first and second grades and brought the teachers to student ratio from 1 to 27 down to about 1 to 22. While this ratio is still greater than the ratio in Washington Teachers Union contract, it has been significant in improving classroom conditions. We are asking that the council or that DCPS make our one-time allocation of $230,000 budgeted amount for 2 teachers permanent in our school budget for the next school year. This would simply maintain the current funding level for our school. We thank you for your time and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Allison. Our next speaker is, sorry, I lost track. Sorry, everyone. Our next speaker is Emily Blake. You were ready. I was not.
Good evening. That's quite all right. Thank you so much. My name is Emily Blake, and I am a parent of a first grader in DCPS, as well as the parent representative co-chair at the LSAT at Murch Elementary in Ward 3. On behalf of our LSAT team and our school community, we ask that our overall funding be at least maintained for the 2024-2025 school year. We are asking that DCPS make our one-time allocation of $230,000, which was the budgeted amount for 2 teachers given last year, be made permanent in our school's budget for the upcoming school year. This would simply maintain the current funding level for our school and reflect teacher hires and salary adjustments in line with enrollment for our school to prevent cases of overcrowded classrooms and understaffing issues. The enrollment of our school becomes clearer as we move towards June, which is a pattern of our school, and we ask that this ensures the teacher-student ratio is at the appropriate level for student achievement and in support of teacher performance. We recommend that the student-teacher ratio be in line with the ratios given by the Washington Teachers Union contract and not exceed it. Our school will need to have a current budget allocations as student moves up in grades and sizes of grade cohorts fluctuate. So we want to ensure that that teacher to student ratio per grade is maintained and sticks with the WTU standards and not exceed it. So once again, what we are specifically asking for our Murch Elementary School community is that the budget team for DCPS make our one-time allocation of $230,000, the budgeted amount for 2 teachers permanent in our school's budget for the upcoming school year and new budget to ensure that our classrooms are at ratios where students and teachers can succeed. Thank you so much for allowing me to testify this evening. And thank you for your consideration on this matter.
Thank you, Emily. And our next speaker in this group is Marin Corin. Marine, I probably am pronouncing the name wrong.
No, you're great. Thank you. I'm going to keep it short since you heard from other Merge parents right now, but I'm also a parent at Merge of 2 second graders and next year rising kindergartner. And I'm also a member of the DCPS Merge Elementary LSAT. And as a member of the LSAT, I really understand what macro pressures will impact the DCPS overall budget next year. But as DCPS crafts its budget guiding principles for next year, our main request is really to ensure that our budget reflects our enrollment patterns on a grade level basis to make sure that no grade ends up with class size that would not be manageable for a single teacher. We were very grateful that DCPS allocated a one-time grant for the 2 teachers this year for grades 1 and 2, but we anticipate that similar additional funds will be necessary to keep the class sizes to a reasonable level next year. And in the coming months, we will be gathering further input from our school community and parents and students ahead of the budget timeline, which we will leverage to further inform what other priorities we'll have for the school year 24-25. But at least at this stage, we wanted to share those early concerns with the DCPS team. Thank you very much for your time and for enabling us to come and speak with you tonight.
Thank you so much. All right, and the last in the group is Nisa Harper.
Hi, how was everyone?
Great.
Okay, great. So good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Nisa Harper. I'm a Ward 8 resident. I'm currently a mom of 3 children in DCPS schools. I'm a former social worker. I write, and I'm always an advocate. But specifically for this evening, my kids are in 3 different DCPS schools. For the record, just context, they've been in public schools in DC since we've been here the last 10 years. They've been in charter schools and I homeschooled them once. I'm testifying today about just a positive and then also where I think funding shifts should occur, could occur. One of the positives that I want to highlight and speak on is I've always loved the diversity of the staff and the leadership in all the schools in DC. And that is a plus for me as a mom of kids of color, because I know it helps with not just my kids, but with their, so I'm basically saying kudos to that, but it helps with their sense of place in the world and who they are. Now, I just want to say one of my kids, my youngest, is now on the debate team at Ketchum Elementary School. We're in a high crime area, and that's going to lead to what I'm going to say. He's really excited about it. It just started, but I can tell even in a short amount of time, it's boosting his confidence. I have a teenage son and daughter. One spoke earlier. They do well in school, and right now this year, they're both on the track team. One of the other positives with DCPS that I've experienced for the most part, like 95% of the time, is that my children are just pushed generally and really encouraged to excel and pushed beyond even their own expectations. But I want to speak quickly on my youngest last year at Ketchum. He had an issue with bullying. And I advocated on his behalf. I had to teach him how to advocate on his behalf. And I got him on board with the mental health specialist at the school, Ms. Thomas. The principal and the staff, it was not easy at first. The principal and the staff and I ran into a lot of snags. I did get in touch with DC bullying programs. So I used that resource and they did intervene. I had to repeatedly go through things. And even though my son is empathetic and kind and intelligent, it caused a bit of depression with him. That's why I had him with the therapy. So what I'm saying I wanted to shift, would like to see more of a shift, especially as a former social worker. is more funding going towards retiring and retaining wellness teams at schools located specifically in high violence neighborhoods. And so I'm not saying something new, but just looking at, because it'll spill over into the school environment. And I just want to add quickly that being a former social worker, I did advocate, my son didn't like it, but I did also advocate for the main bully, for people to pay attention and put some more attention as to why he was acting out. And this year, he's actually a really great student. So to me, that just shows, even with how Ketchum responded and how we worked through it, and even with my son, it shows that there can be snags in certain environments or certain schools, but if resources, tools, and communications are used, then the family, the student, and the staff can work through that. So I want to just push. Hopefully, yeah. Okay. So that's probably on my time.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you are at time. I would just wanted you to wrap up.
Okay, thanks.
Give you your time. So thank you so much, and thank you for
you.
also having your son come earlier today. Very important. So we're going to move on to the next group. And I see Laura is teed up. Laura is the first. Let me read the other 5 names in the group. So we have Laura Fuchs, we have Caleb Ward, we have Taisha Andrews, we have Tiana Bartulak Blanc, we have Dana Springer, and we have Allison Meehan. Those are our next 6. Laura, we can begin with you.
All right, thank you. So I teach at H.D. Woodson High School. I'm in my 17th year at the school. So I've been at H.D. Woodson for the entirety of mayoral control. I'm just going to present a set of challenges and solutions that I believe would work. So the first challenge is that the Washington Teachers Union contract expires and DCPS does not show up to negotiate in good faith. Once again, we see the endless pattern under mayoral control of a contract expiring without any negotiation timeline in sight. In my 17-year teaching career, 12 of those years have been on expired contracts. I've done the math. That is over 70% of my teaching career. This makes it difficult for the DC Council to properly fund our school system so that those costs can be accounted for upfront. When it comes to calculating how much money our schools get so they can cover those costs without losing any positions. The solution would be to show up at the table before the WU contract expires, then negotiate in good faith to benefit our students, educators, and school communities. Pretty easy. Next challenge, school populations are unstable, especially in schools east of the river. Because we're using student-based budgeting, and even before, that's primarily based on how many students a school serves and less on programming, it causes our budget to fluctuate wildly. This is further compounded based on DCPS inability to properly predict our enrollment numbers. Last year, our prediction was very high. I'm concerned we've been unable to meet those numbers, which now means we'll be facing years of cuts if previous patterns are any indication. When this is compounded with large numbers of charter schools, the challenges with high quality, stable, and affordable housing that many of our students face, and then the life events that can push further instability, we see a large number of students come and go from our schools, which are often unaccounted for in our budgets. My solution would be to fund schools based on long-term programmatic planning. We should instead base the bulk of our funding off multi-year models that are about sustained investment in the programming and outcome we want to see. DCPS should be sending in experts who can be requested based on the needs of the school to help create those plans with the LSAP. And then we can have more targeted measures that we truly are using to gauge if the investments are being done in a way that benefits the students we serve. Another challenge is the constant churn of innovations that have real costs on time, workload, and school budgets. More needs to be done to align DCPS budgets with our priorities of investing in students. Too often, outside groups are driving large-scale changes and not considering the full costs, which our local schools are then forced to cover, eating into our general education fund. The solution would be to lower the cost of spending of central office, increase the spending by our school communities. Last one would just be, please follow the law when it comes to at-risk ELL and special education funds and not use them to supply the funds that were typically owed. And the solution would be to follow the law in the DC auditor's report. Also, just please fund our technology because we have no tech. I have not seen a computer for a student all year. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Caleb Ward is next.
I'm unable to start my video, but I can present.
Sorry, what'd you say, Caleb?
I'm unable to start my video, but if you can hear
Oh.
me, I'm happy to present.
I
It
saw
says
it
the
earlier.
host has stopped it.
Huh. All right. Feel free to start.
Yep. Great. So thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is
spotlighted your. It's working now.
Great. My name is Caleb Ward. I'm a Ward 6 resident, a pediatrician, and a father of 3 children enrolled in DCPS. And I'm a parent representative on the LSAT at Ludlow Taylor Elementary School, an incredible DCPS school with 11% of students in special education and 17% of students designated at risk. First, I just want to acknowledge the Council for passing the DC Schools First in Budgeting Amendment Act of 2022. I've served on LSAT for several years, and every year we seem to start budget season trying to figure out where we're going to cut funding, which invariably means teacher positions. 2 years ago, a school librarian and a science teacher on the chopping block. Last year, a PE teacher and a science teacher, and that Schools First Budgeting Act is a really important way to prevent the damage and disruption caused by those funding cuts. Second, however, I really want to implore that DCPS complies with that legislation this year in a timely manner. Last year, our school was one of many presented with an initial budget cut of more than $300,000 unrelated to student enrollment. And while only less than 5%, this would have led to multiple teacher positions being cut. While DCPS eventually amended that budget, it didn't happen until the early summer, and that timing and uncertainty creates really untenable stresses for our educators. These teachers have families to support and no shortage of school systems looking to hire them, and teachers found positions, in some cases outside of the district, only for the funds to then to be allocated for their old positions. Our principal was left hiring to fill a vacancy that only existed because DCPS failed to comply with that legislation in a timely manner. Third, I just want to emphasize the importance of timing when DCPS releases these budgets to school communities. Last year, these budgets were released over a DCPS vacation. This makes it really challenging for LSATs, which include teachers and parents who are on vacation, to provide robust and meaningful guidance to principals on a tight timeline. Finally, as a pediatrician, I just want to underscore that while the COVID-19 pandemic funding may be ending, the damage done to children is obviously just starting to unfold. And we see that starkly illustrated in every school in the district in both academic performance and mental health. And while DCPS reported modest district-wide increases in proficiency and PARCC data last year, the Empower K-12 report noted that it would take at least 3 to 4 years to return to 2019 levels of proficiency. Budget cuts will make that take longer. All our schools need ongoing sustained levels of funding so that principals can retain the incredible teachers in DCPS, keep class sizes appropriate, and fund high impact tutoring and purchase high quality instructional materials. Additionally, the pandemic has had a detrimental impact on the mental health of children. The American Academy of Pediatrics, of which I'm a member, has noted that we're observing soaring rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidality. A report from Children's National found that 20% of the district's children have mental, emotional, or behavioral problems. This is an issue in every school in the district, and I see the impact of it every day in the emergency room. Schools play a critical role in addressing this, screening students, and deploying primary prevention strategies. They cannot do that if key mental health and other staff positions are not funded or are funded so late in the budget cycle that they are difficult to fill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for the ongoing support of students and educators in the district.
Thank you, Caleb. Next, we have, I hope I'm going to pronounce this right, Taisha Andrews. Taisha. I practiced it earlier. I'm still messing it up. Thank you so much for coming, Taisha.
Thank you. Yes, it's Taisha Andrews.
Taisha.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I also go by Ty. My name is Ty Andrews. I'm a Ward 8 resident and a proud parent of a second grader at Mary H. Plummer Elementary School and a freshman at McKinley Tech High School. Also a parent leader with PAVE, Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, and I'm on the citywide and Ward 8 PLE boards. I'm also an LSAT member at Plummer, and I am the PTO First Vice President at McKinley Tech. Today I'm testifying to ensure that funds are increased for the central office and capital budget, and to ensure that the funding specifically goes towards additional funding and renovations and administrative issues at McKinley Tech High School and Plummer. I'll specifically go through the issues today that we are experiencing at McKinley Tech. McKinley Tech needs funding for full modernization. The building issues at McKinley Tech are as follows: no hot water throughout the school, no water source in the cafeteria, heaters in the front entryway that are not operable, and a drain that leaks in the upstairs garden. When plants are watered, the leaks come down into the breezeway and have damaged the windows and the ceiling. So until those repairs are done, the garden in McKinley Tech cannot be used. Two other issues that were brought to light are there's a mice infestation that has been going on for some time, and there's a request to have quality runners be put down at the entryway when there's bad weather, because they're currently using cardboard when it rains or there's bad weather. So they would need additional funding to ensure better runners during that bad weather time. There has not been a water fountain in the cafeteria since the school reopened. We all did submit a work order for the water fountain, but it was denied. When we brought this to the facility specialist attention, we were told that if we move forward with a long-term solution, it would become a project for the 2025 school year. To install the water fountain, we need to install new water pipelines, which involve investigation of existing lines and designing new fountains. And I'm sorry, I stumbled over my own words, my apologies. And designing where new fountains will be placed in the cafeteria. Demolition can impact kitchen operation and installation of water fountains. According to the DCPS website, and I quote, "Your mission is to ensure that every student has a world-class education and the resources needed to succeed. The updated budget model is designed to support DCPS overall mission and goal to provide equitable resources so every student can excel. If this is truly a goal of DCPS and its counterparts and constituents, funding will be provided to assist McKinley in achieving this goal." I'm sorry, constituents. Oh, goodness, so tired. Funding will be provided to assist McKinley in achieving this goal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And we will look for your testimony that goes into details on Plummer as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for coming this evening. All right, the next person we will call up is Tiana Bartuluk Blank. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
No, thank you so much. That's perfect. Thanks for the effort. So I'm a parent at Hardy Middle School and also serve on Hardy PTO. I just wanted to start by saying kudos to DCPS for making the school level budget so transparent. I mean, if you look at your budget website, you can see that Hardy has one of the tightest DCPS per student budgets in the district. We also don't receive any Title I funds, and despite lacking the economies of scale of otherwise comparable but larger DCPS middle schools, we're getting by. Specifically, our budget for this year is just over $12,800 per student. And the only school in the district with a lower allocation is Deal, but with more than double the student population, it does also benefit from substantial economies of scale. Hardy, as you have heard from at least 4 of my colleagues from the PTO and LSAT, has the second highest student-teacher ratio and the second lowest per student non-personnel allocation across all middle schools. So our student per teacher ratio is more than 25 students per teacher in almost half of our core classes. And so we really need increased funding to achieve this minimal goal of having no classes over 21 students per teacher in the next fiscal year. Our non-personnel budget is just $80 per student. And while the PTO has been more than happy to help, this exceptionally tight budget means that Hardy has needed to depend on the PTO almost exclusively for even the most basic supplies like toilet paper and cleaning supplies. So since we're talking about these essential supplies for middle school children, it's just important for me to emphasize, especially since I'm repeating a lot of what other Hardy parents have said, but not this. This does include this very vulnerable cohort, girls who are experiencing their first periods. And so you can just imagine what that is doing. We're depriving them of essential supplies at this most delicate age, both physically and emotionally. We know our girls' sense of belonging is at its lowest. It's been at 34%. There are some encouraging signs that it's going up. But our school not being able to provide them with these basic supplies does not really help with that sense of belonging. So I'm really proud that last week we held the girls leadership event where almost 160 girls attended. One of the main challenges was technology. The microphone didn't work. The auditorium was exceptionally warm. So many kids simply left and missed this educational opportunity. But that's not even the main challenge with technology at Hardy. We are constantly in need of replacing devices and don't have enough replacement devices. Again, I'll end there, but we're providing less than 6% in educational supplies per child at Hardy. And due to our diversity and kids coming from multiple wards and feeder schools, we have kids who are particularly negatively impacted when we ask them to supply their own devices and complete homework that can only be done online. Thank you so much for the opportunity to discuss these really important issues for Hardy.
Yes, thank you so much for coming this evening. Dana Springer.
Good evening. My name is Dana Springer. I am co-chair of the School Without Walls High School LSAT. I have a 9th grader and an 11th grader. Tonight, I have 3 points to convey on behalf of our school. First, budget stability is paramount. It is necessary to ensure consistency of faculty and staff and programming from year to year to enable our school and any school to deliver on its mission. Unexpected cuts, even temporary, disrupt school operations and have long-term consequences, including start my video. I'm sorry, I didn't realize my video wasn't on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thought
Okay,
I turned
good.
it. Yeah.
I was going to say video and then the letter. We'll give you a few more
Okay.
seconds at the end.
Unexpected cuts, even temporary, disrupt school operations and have long-term consequences, including staff departures, reduced student learning, and loss of public trust. Our school's funding stability for the 23-24 school year, thanks to the school's First in Budgeting Act, allowed our school to start the school year with all positions filled, students learning from day one, and the faculty focusing on strengthening academics, enrichment, and mental health, rather than on plugging holes. This is in sharp contrast to years past when positions were cut and we went deep into the school year without teachers because found funds came too late. So like others tonight, we urge DCPS to ensure funding stability for all schools. Second, funding levels must adequately meet the needs of students in schools. Since the pandemic, students across the city have greater needs for academic support, mental health services, and basic necessities. We've experienced this trend acutely at our school. We're doing what we can to meet students' needs as a community, but it's challenging. For example, our school psychologist and social worker provide mental health support to students on a daily basis, but they're just 2 people serving nearly 600 students. Schools' budgets must also fund core academic programming. It's unreasonable to assume that the services and supplies will be covered by external funds, as is currently needed. For example, our Home and School Association helps ensure rigorous teaching and learning by providing essential supplies. DCPS funding should adequately cover what is needed to deliver high-quality instruction. We understand that long-promised smart boards will be installed at our school this year. We hope this comes to fruition because they're desperately needed. But DCPS must also ensure that technology provided to schools across the city is maintained and supported into the future. Finally, budgets and enrollment must take into consideration school facilities. School Without Walls students love their high school and the college environment that comes from being within the George Washington University campus. However, the building is overcrowded to an extent that is unhealthy and impacts student learning. Our school has a current enrollment of 598 students in a building with a capacity for 520. According to a 2013 report, DC high schools need at least 192 square feet per student, but our building provides not even 2/3 of the minimum. Yet, DCPS proposes increasing enrollment at School Without Walls by 11 students next year. Most of our 38 teachers share classrooms, and many spend their days in windowless basement rooms. The building doesn't have an auditorium, a common theme, or a gymnasium. For many years, our partnership with GW has helped meet our needs for space to hold assemblies, mandated testing, and classes, but we can no longer rely on the university for this. Given these constraints, our school and grade level enrollment cannot exceed current levels. Finally, our building systems are failing. Our HVAC system performs at dangerously slow. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you so much. All right, and we have one more in this group, and then we'll have our final group. Allison Meehan.
Hi, I'm a Ward 2 voter, and I have a daughter in DCPS. I'll just read through it. DCPS focuses on No Child Left Behind and the PARCC exam, yet 49 states have dropped it except for DC and Louisiana, who use it as a hybrid version. Again, 49 states have dropped it. 20% of student population suffers from dyslexia, and this has a major impact on the ability of student to meet minimum requirements of their grade, yet DCPS does not have a coherent policy to address such a magnitude of dyslexia and helping students overcome dyslexia. The pandemic clearly showed that. If dyslexia assistance only goes to second grade, what about all the other kids who come in after that, or those through high school? After second grade, you need highly trained teachers to be able to identify learning difficulties of teens who may have no idea they have dyslexia, and few teachers seem trained in basic child find. Students need to read in all the classes, including math, for example, word problems. DCPS needs to work with leaders in the dyslexia profession. Go back to the Kingsbury Wellness Center and to the lab school, work to set up a coherent policy. And then DCPS needs to cost out adherence to that policy and then budget for it. A money source to eliminate is the PARCC exam, practically a week-long state evaluation program. Again, 49 states have said it was a waste of money. According to the census and the nation's report card, after New York State, DC spends the second most per student, $25,535 for a single district. Yet out of the 100 largest school districts by enrollment, DC is the third largest, and yet the national average for math and reading, DC is the third from the bottom, from above New Mexico and Puerto Rico. For 4 years, my daughter was at Ross Elementary in Ward 2, the tiniest DCPS, under-enrolled for upper grades, and in second grade, she was 2 deviations below grade level, and no one would say the word dyslexia for 4 years. And for 4 years, she was denied an IEP. During COVID, I sat on the PTA, was forced to co-create a support group for families with learning disabilities, working with the AJE and the JCC. My daughter is now at Francis in 7th grade, and she's taking 8th grade advanced math. Yet for this year, she's also taking 2 to 3 45-minute classes a week, learning 7th grade PARCC math standards taught by the Teacher Leadership Innovation Program to teach teachers how to teach for the PARCC. So get rid of the PARCC, use that money to fund for a student program, take that $25,000 per student and spend it on a coherent policy that embeds strategies to help students in all grades with dyslexia. This helps all students and provide teachers with training in dyslexia, support the teachers, give them advanced training for their own careers, give them aids, and you will attract more teachers to DCPS and retain them in all 8 wards. And naturally, with a better allocated money, schools can then be ambitious with reading and creative writing programs. There's no creative writing program in DCPS. It's only like evidence, and then get information based on that evidence. Anyway, you have the money. You have the money. That's my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I'm going to go ahead and call the final group. There's a chance that a few more folks will come. So if anyone else comes, we will call one more group after this. But for now, this is the final group. We have Alex Simbana, Christine Miller, Tara Brown, Regina Bell, and Libby Bucoli. Let's start with Alex.
Hi, good evening. Hi, Sarah. My name is Alex Simbana, and I'm the proud parent of 2 DCPS students at 2 different DCPS schools. First, I want to thank and highlight the excellent and unwavering work our teachers, staff, and admin do each and every day. It is particularly impressive when you focus on the administrative and process complications that they must endure as they work to educate our children without fail. As we noted in our testimony from Digital Equity and DC Education, the prolonged procurement process, which lasts 24 weeks, is not responsive to our schools' changing technology needs. We see throughout the DCPS system, we are not meeting the commitment of one-to-one computers for students. DCPS Central must acknowledge this as an operational failure, which is hurting our kids' education. While DCPS may not own all of this process, it can and should advocate for changes to the procurement process to help schools. Transparency and predictable school budgets should be what DCPS schools and central office push together with parents to enforce. A school community cannot build on progress made when every year the budget process may force them to cut programs and positions. Advocating for and supporting the First and Budgeting Act must be supported by parents, schools, and this LEA because it provides stability for our students, teachers, and schools. It is also the law. Teacher and staff retention is tied to predictable school budgets. Our teachers must be able to know their positions are firmly established at their schools throughout the school budget season. If we are forcing our teachers to feel like they have to consistently be on the lookout for another job because they don't feel confident in the one they have, that's a problem, and an entirely self-inflicted and avoidable one. Additionally, when we make a commitment to pay teachers or paraprofessionals compensation, then it should be honored with haste. I know 3 paraprofessionals who had to depart their postings because they were not receiving their paychecks. This is not a unique situation, unfortunately, and is happening at schools throughout the district. Again, these are administrative failures that hit at the school level and affect the stability and learning environments for the students. Lastly, I would like to strongly encourage DCPS to have a mechanism where schools that receive in excess of additional students well above their projections before and after count day, that they should receive additional funding to help the school fully service the new students and ensure programming is not affected for the rest of the school. At Tacoma Elementary, we've welcomed almost 90 new students since August. Overall, school budgets need established and predictable budgets so they can plan accordingly and not waste time reinventing the school wheel each year because of unpredictable funding. Teachers feel the stress, constantly being asked to do more with less, having to reach into their own pockets to buy pencils, glue sticks, and toilet paper for kids, struggling with computers that don't work and take 24 weeks to replace. Losing paraprofessionals who didn't get a paycheck is unacceptable. I do want to say that just today, the Chancellor spoke about having ongoing conversations with the OCFO as he is assured that it will not affect the schools. This is simply untrue. All stakeholders, of which the LEA is one, should place the proper funding and operational functioning at the school level. The city talks about valuing teachers and wanting to retain teachers, but then sends budget cuts. We're out here bringing our lived experiences, and at every turn, those experiences are denied or pushed aside. This is also administrative failure from the top. You cannot address the issues in our system unless you acknowledge the issues at hand. I've been active with DCPS since 2015, and each time an arm of DCPS has asked for parents to help and serve, I've done my part, as do many of my fellow DCPS parents in big and small ways each day and at every school throughout the city. We need to see action and real concrete solutions to ensure that all DCPS students have access to the best education. Our children deserve our best efforts and determination to ensure they are prepared for the future. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alex. Let's go on to, Christine Miller.
Hi, thank you. I believe you have my letter submitted on behalf of Advisory Neighborhood Commission 1A. Thank you, Chancellor Farabee, and of course the DCPS team for this opportunity to share some budget flags. I'm here in a couple capacities. One, I'm a DCPS parent of 2 students, but I'm also here representing Advisory Neighborhood Commission 1A as the chair of their Committee on Education, Youth, and Family. This year, we've held a series of community engagement events in partnership with several local organizations that were targeted at our residents and, of course, residents across Ward 1. We'd like to bring to your attention some concerns regarding the district DCPS's LGBTQ plus resources and its transgender gender questioning policies. These are essential for fostering an inclusive and supportive educational environment for all of our students. And there is a need for immediate updates, improvements, and investments. So as you're working to draft your FY25 budget submissions, ANC 1A requests increased support for the DC Public Schools LGBTQ+ and sexual health program to continue the critical work that they're doing. But we've also identified a number of areas that these investments could improve, including outdated transgender gender questioning policy. The current policy was last updated in 2015. Chancellor Kaya Henderson is on the cover of that. Chancellor Farabee, I'd love to see you on that updated version. It may not fully meet the needs and rights of our transgender and gender questioning students, so we recommend a thorough review and revision to align with current best practices and legal requirements, and that funding be provided to implement that. In addition, we need to update LGBTQ plans for staff and educators. Again, this has not been updated since 2011. It predates Oberfell. It's again crucial that we provide this guidance and create this environment for LGBTQ students. We need a thorough review, and we need alignment with current best practices. We have inadequate LGBTQ+ resources and information for families. The DCPS page for that information should have working links to all of its materials. And it should also be accessible across languages. We're looking for support for our LGBTQ+ students in the form of support groups or clubs such as gay straight alliances. And finally, I'd really like to flag the need for menstrual products in all of our DCPS bathrooms, regardless of gender. We know DC Act 29294 requires that in our women's and gender neutral bathrooms, but ANC 1A believes that this disregards transgender men, non-binary individuals, and gender diverse individuals who also menstruate. Every DCPS school should have menstrual products in all of its bathrooms, regardless of designation. We want to avoid forcing our students into gender neutral space when we know that they are clear and confident in their gender identity. Again, we just look to DCPS to reflect their commitment to our LGBTQ+ populations to create that safe, respectful, and inclusive environment, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Tara Brown.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tara Brown. I'm a paid parent leader and ANC commissioner representing 8D, and most importantly, I'm a Ward 8 parent. I've lived in the Bellevue community since my daughter was in kindergarten. She is currently in her junior year of high school. I was a DCPS parent for the first 8 years of my daughter's education, so my suggestion today comes with some experience. When considering how best to utilize your FY25 budget, you need to think about setting and maintaining a standard for all DCPS schools. I'm sure it is not news to you that DCPS schools are not treated equitably. There is not a standard that DCPS strives to maintain for all schools. The evidence of this lack of standards is in the numbers. DCPS has the immense responsibility to educate 52% of the school-age children in DC. Ward 8 is home to the largest number of these students, yet over half of those students leave Ward 8 to attend other schools. Over half of the students that leave travel for an hour or more. Why would families choose to bypass their neighborhood schools and subject their children to the dangers of unsafe passage with the uptick of violence in the city? The answer is that we are seeking schools that operate at a higher standard than what is available to us in Ward 8. When my daughter attended Patterson Elementary, she did not go on any field trips. I was told that there was not enough money for transportation. They could only afford to hire a librarian part-time. At Leckie Elementary, they could not keep their beloved art teacher due to a lack of funds. The 4th grade classes shared a set of outdated tablets that did not work very well. A standard would establish a level at which all of your schools should operate. All schools should be able to take field trips. All schools should have a full-time librarian, art and music instruction, access to special programs like gifted and talented, AP options, and dual enrollment programs. Your budget should be used to equitably raise the standards for schools that have 90-degree classrooms, no hot water, missing vital staff like librarians, counselors, nurses, and humanities teachers. Your budget should take an honest look at your schools and what is missing from them. Ward 8 schools deserve to be elevated. Set a standard that gives our students a chance to thrive with access to resources and a well-rounded, diverse education. This budget is about more than numbers. It represents an opportunity for you to enrich your students, all of your students. Parents in Ward 8 want better opportunities for our kids without having to put them in harm's way to travel across town. I speak for Ward 8 parents because I am one. My daughter has been stalked and sexually assaulted traveling outside of Ward 8 to school in the same year. I face the fear of her trek to another ward another ward 5 days a week. Ward 8 families should not have to choose between safety and educational opportunities. Set standards, raise all of your schools to that level, and keep them there. That is how the largest LEA in the city can best use their budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. All right, second to last, we have Regina Bell.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Regina Bell, General Vice President of the Washington Teachers Union. The WTU is dedicated to a social and educational justice for all students in the District of Columbia and to improving the quality of support, resources, compensation, and working conditions for the public servants and proud teachers who educate our students in DCPS. Teachers in DCPS wear many hats, and they play a crucial role in students' lives. We'd like DCPS to recognize the significance of this role and show deference. You can show respect by taking politics out of the budget process. Be transparent by releasing the budget in a searchable format with plenty of time so that it can be easily analyzed. Be transparent as to where and how at-risk money is spent. The pandemic magnified the systemic problems in DC. It disproportionately affected people and students in wards 5, 7, and 8. As we emerge from the pandemic and you prepare the school budgets for next year, do not inflict any more harm on those communities in those wards. Reinvest in by right neighborhood schools so parents won't have to travel across town for opportunities that should be available in their own community. This will also help the enrollment in the smallest schools. COVID money has been available to help students recover from learning loss and trauma experienced during the pandemic. School budgets need a more stable and consistent funding plan to ensure that those one-time funds that were the most effective for students are replenished during the next budget cycle. To do so, we need to see the data showing how that money was used and which programs were effective. And we must find ways to continue funding those effective programs that support student social and emotional learning as well as meet their academic needs. SEL needs to be met before students can learn. With the increased violence students throughout the city are experiencing, SEL needs to be a priority. Fund school libraries, which are essential in supporting students' development of lifelong critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Adequately staff special ed. Many self-contained SPED classes are overcrowded. Those classrooms are not safe as there are not enough adults, teachers, and paraprofessionals to meet the students' needs. I heard from a teacher today, a SPED teacher today, that she teaches students in the hallway. This is not acceptable. Don't ask our teachers and principals to do more with less. For some students, school is the most stable part of their day. Let's not cause any more disruption in their lives by cutting school budgets. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our final testimony of the evening will be coming from Libby Bucoli.
Hi there, thanks for letting me speak. I will try to be fast and interesting. I am a parent of 3 kids.
Do you have your camera on, Libby? Well, no, I saw my first anime I ever saw the kid.
All right, where did I lose you?
There we go. Very, very beginning. So we'll
okay.
Yeah, we'll start you over. And now we can see you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm the parent.
Oh.
Concern over the new nursing allocation plan, which is deeply affecting the quality of life for DC students. In 2016, parents shared their objection to a similar plan to split up nurses into different schools, and the council acted to ensure new recent inadequate allocation formula has gone into effect. I've heard that this nursing allocation was done. Can you hear me? Because my internet's coming in and out.
It's a little spotty, but keep going. We can hear most of it. Yeah. And don't forget, we have your written testimony. Now Libby's frozen. Oh. Let's see if she rejoins. I'll give her a few seconds.
Sarah, if her internet was going in and out, we might ask her to turn her video off.
Yeah, I know. After I told her to turn it back on.
Hi, I'm back. Should I turn my video off?
Yeah, let's just keep that off just in case. Thank you for rejoining, Libby.
Thanks. Okay, so let's try this again. I'm not sure where I left off, but I'm basically worried about the nursing allocation. There seems to be no transparency when there's nurses or nurses' aides in the schools. Many parents have stated that their school has little to no coverage. I've heard horror stories of ambulances called to schools to rescue kids who could have just received an EpiPen injection. Our kids are unsafe. This nursing allocation plan seems to allocate one nurse per 4 schools plus one aide, regardless of the size of the school. I looked at an analysis of the allocation formula on a spreadsheet I received on September 5th, 2023, and it shows the allocation does not take into account the size of schools. For example, Jackson Reed High School is in the same cluster, cluster 14, as 3 elementary schools. This cluster totals 33,914 children. I got the enrollment information from DCPS's website. Thank you. Deal is also in the same cluster as 3 elementary schools, and those schools total 3,397 schools. Coolidge IWLs has 3 elementary schools as well, plus the high school, middle school, and that totals 2,700 kids. And I think this is dangerous and irresponsible. I've heard that the nursing shortage is used as an excuse for the poor allocation formula, but past history on this issue has shown that nurses actually favor working in schools. So I can't help but think that this allocation formula is actually intended to save money. I'm very concerned that kids are being placed in dangerous situations to save money in the short term. I'm convinced that this short-term fix will increase costs across the city in the next 10 years. Healthcare costs will rise because students will get sick at school. They will experience life-threatening health crises at school, resulting in hospitalization, and communicable diseases transmission will rise, thus transmitting and sickening the entire DC population. This is not to mention the nurse's role in identifying mental health issues and being a first line of defense against chemical or gas leaks by spotting symptoms before children die. I am aware that DC schools, nurses are funded through DC's Department of Health. So I urge DCPS and the Department of Health to work together to increase nurses' salaries, to improve retention rates, and ensure that the promise we received nearly 7 years ago, a nurse for each school, is fulfilled. And while I'm on the topic of health, I would also note that while you do not fund Wilson Pool, which is attached to Jackson Reed High School, losing that pool has created issues for our kids who compete in sports, as it reduces the places that they have to go shower after they've worked out. And it also is a real setback for the track team that used to water run all winter long while they were working on their fitness. Thank you very much for your patience, and sorry for the tech issues.
No problem. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sticking with us, Libby, as you are the final person who will be testifying this evening. Again, thank you to everyone for joining. I will turn it to Chancellor Farabee for a few closing words, and then we will end this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Just a reminder to everyone what our next steps are. You see before you the next 3 phases, which we started tonight with the public engagement. We get the opportunity to hear from students. I'm really thrilled that we heard from a student tonight. We get to hear from more of our students in the coming weeks. And then reminder, we'll start the local school advisory team supports in January, and then hope to get budgets to you as soon as possible so they can be submitted and finalized once the mayor has submitted her budget to council and council ultimately approves the budget. While there's been a lot of feedback around budget, there are a couple items that I heard tonight that are actionable now. Certainly we'll share the concerns with DC Health and Children's National about nurses. I've heard about some facility improvements that are concerned, and then also menstrual products. So while we appreciated the feedback on the budget, there are other areas that we'll certainly take back to our team. For all the parents and guardians of DCPS, thank you for choosing DCPS. We know you have options. We're proud that we continue to be a first choice. More families continue to choose DC Public Schools. I think is a testament to your support and the work of our educators and our staff and school leaders. A reminder that, again, our local school advisory team is a team that advises the principal and is a school-based team that helps the school leaders develop the budget and identify priorities. So we look forward to supporting the work that you do as LSAT members, and we want to ensure there's diversity among those teams. So I encourage you to think about how you may be a part of it. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and giving us your time this evening. Thank you.